That song you love is on right now, not later, not on a playlist, not something you have to pay for. I mean live, right now. That's called radio. In Seattle, that's called Warm 106.9.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the original Loretta Brown Show, radio to open the heart, heal the soul, and awaken the consciousness. And as always, Mr. Benny Mathers, how are you, my friend?
Hello, and voila, there I am.
Voila. You know, I was sitting here thinking, like, I usually have something to tune into. I'm like, what's been going on in the world? I don't even know what planet I'm on half the time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't know what planet you're on? I mean, all right, we gotta talk to someone about that one. I mean,
I've been I call it time slippage. Where,
yes.
Right, I can't figure out what day it is, or 5 minutes feels like 5 seconds, or something like that. And I've also been doing this thing. I don't know if you ever do this. I dream a whole day before it happens, and then I realize, oh, wait a minute, I dreamt the day. I didn't actually live the day. Like, now I got to live the day, right? So,
yeah. Do you do a dream book? Do you write stuff down?
I do.
See, I need to start doing that.
I do.
I feel like
I've done it. Yeah, I've done it for years. And I also experience deja vu a lot, which is kind of trippy. So
I have that once in a blue moon. I'll be like, kind of getting a little zone. I'll be like, wait a minute. Yeah. I've been here before. Yeah. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Also, I do have one thing that if you're interested, because I know, I'll just say it anyways. Okay, so the company Prego, you know, the sauce company and so forth, they're now partnering up with another company that will have devices that you can turn on and off during dinner time at your table. Because it's all bringing the families back to the dinner table for those conversations, we once grew up with that, seems like it's being pushed further and further away because all of the devices we have in general. But wouldn't that be kind of cool to like fast forward like 30 years and be like, oh yeah, let's listen to what we did back in 2026 at the dinner table and what we were talking about. It'd be kind of cool. And they say like all of the audio can be captured and then it's saved and it's under security, reasons and stuff like that. So you can access it later. And
wow.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I am actually love technology. I like it when we advance into stuff, and I'm fascinated to think about what the world to come will be like. So yeah, I love that.
Especially around the dinner time, everyone's
dinner time.
Usually chit-chatting and fills in about their day and see how they're doing. And technology, what you're saying, like we're doing the show right now via Zoom and all the other, connections we have makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, keep dinner a happy place.
Yes.
Maybe that's my new $1 million t-shirt. But anyway, there it is.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, well, I hope everybody's doing good out there. I am Loretta Brown. I'm the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area for, I keep saying it, 30 years. It seems incredible. I do have, believe it or not, gong baths coming up. Yes, they're coming up.
What?
Coming.
That's what I thought.
Thank you.
See, you're trying to sneak it in now, so I wouldn't be listening. But...
I wanted to see if you were on top of it.
I'm on top of it.
Totally know what's going on. Don't try to pull anything over Benny's eyes. That's not going to work. Right. Yeah. I love it. But I do. I have a gong bath this Saturday at 12:30, and the one at 10 is already full, so I put another one on at 12:30. And then next Friday, believe it or not, May 1st, I can't believe I'm saying May 1st.
I know.
I have a very special gong bath, the Wesak Moon Gong Bath at 7:00 in the evening at Reiki Oasis. So, maybe you can come to that one if you can't come to the one in the morning on Saturday. But this one is an international event, and we join forces with, believe it or not, gong players from all over the world. And we set an intention that we will be doing these gong healing baths to bring peace to the world. And so it's really lovely. I participated in these events last year, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. So the sound will go out. Of course, I'll send it to all of you and to wherever it is that it is needed. And gong has a very powerful ability to sort of shake things up in a very different way than the crystal bowls, which I also do concerts with those. So I hope that you will go to You could actually go to ReikiOasis.com to sign up for the Gong Baths, or you can go to schedule.ReikiOasis.com. But I do them every month. And of course, like I said, the one Friday, May 1st is a very special one. So I hope you'll join. And space is limited. It is in person at Reiki Oasis in Bellevue, Washington, which is, of course, the east side of Seattle. I hope you'll come. And then, yes, Egypt is happening. We are going to Egypt October 13th through the 26th for a very sacred, amazing trip. And yeah, I keep saying it. Yes, we did get the yacht, and we always get the yacht, but you know, it's hard to get it. So, but we're going to go to all the temples. You have 7 nights on the Nile River in our beautiful, luxurious boat. It is a luxury trip. And we will also be staying right next to the pyramids in the Mina House. And of course, we're going to all the temples. We have sacred ceremonies everywhere. And it's a small group, 12 people only. So the trip's about half full. If you want to come, please send an email to reikioasis@gmail.com. I'll send you all the information. We'll get you in. And now astrology. Let's get into it. This week's astrology brought a noticeable shift. Last week, we had 7 planets in Aries, a stellium. This week, one of them, the sun, decided to move into Taurus, had enough of that hot heat in the fire room, is what I say, right?
Like the ring of fire?
The ring of fire!
That's hot.
Woohoo! I love that so much. I'm an Aries, you know, so yeah, you can't, you know.
Right up your alley.
But my moon's in Capricorn, that saves my life all the time. That's how I feel.
So do I, because I'm a Capricorn. Aww.
I know. That's why I like you so much.
Aww.
Yeah. So anyway, the sun did move into Taurus, inviting us to slow down and to reconnect with our bodies. So you might have been more aware of your body, right? Like maybe those aches and pains, or wow, I need to get out and take a walk or something. What have I been eating, right? And it helps us focus on what truly matters. Taurus energy asks us to come back to center, especially around finances, resources, and what we value the most. After weeks of rapid movement and big decisions, this is the time to integrate, assess, and bring things into form in a steady and sustainable way. Between April 23rd and April 25th, we move into a very rare and significant window, 2 astrological events occurring just days apart that mark both an ending and a beginning. On April 23rd at 9:58 p.m. Eastern Time, Venus meets Uranus at the very last degree of Taurus. This is the final conjunction of Venus and Uranus in Taurus in our lifetime. It completes an 8-year cycle that's been reshaping themes around money, security, relationships, and even how we experience the body and the physical world. When a cycle completes at the final degree of a sign, there is often a sense of culmination or revelation. Something will come full circle, and we see more clearly what has changed. On April 25th, Uranus moves into Gemini. Uranus and Gemini. Oh, wow. Uranus, unexpected things, and Gemini's that air sign, the twins, right? Sometimes the good twins, sometimes evil twins. Gemini, for the first time since 1949, beginning a brand new 7-year cycle. The last time Uranus was in Gemini, we saw the emergence of technologies that transformed communication, television, early computing, and major shifts in how information was shared. Uranus in Gemini historically rewrites how humans think, speak, and connect. And interestingly enough, Benny already kind of touched on that subject. How fascinating. So within just a few days, we are closing one chapter connected to stability, values, and the material world, and opening another that will transform communication, information, and perception itself. Also on April 24th, Venus moves into Gemini, supporting connection, conversation, and the sharing of ideas. That's a Venus in Gemini. It's a wonderful time to network, to speak up, to ask for what you need, and to bring clarity into relationships and creative projects. And on a global level, we may see shifts in media messaging. I'm sorry, I can't talk. And the flow of information. I need more Gemini. That's what's going on. Economically, there can be movement tied to communication technology and evolving systems. So spiritually, we're being invited to expand our awareness and rethink how we understand reality. So this week, we're going to ground into what is real and meaningful, kind of revisit stuff, and stay open to change, new perspectives, and new ways of thinking. And perhaps the deeper question is this: in a world that is constantly shifting, sometimes rapidly, sometimes unexpectedly, how do we stay steady? How do we stay present? How do we not get caught up in the current over there? And one of the big ones, how do we care for ourselves? And how do we care for others without losing ourselves? I think there's an awful lot going on in the world right now. People are always asking me, Loretta, what is the truth of anything? Who's telling the truth? What's really going on? And sometimes I say, just come back into center. If you get into that quiet space, kind of recenter, then you will end up with a very different perception. So on that, I'm going to bring my wonderful guest in today, Roy Remer, author of Zen Caregiving, How to Care for Yourself While Caring for Others. Well, that's right in theme with our astrology. Roy is an educator and end-of-life caregiver who has spent nearly 3 decades supporting individuals and families through some of life's most tender and challenging moments. As executive director of the Zen Caregiving Project in San Francisco, he has helped thousands of caregivers develop the tools to remain grounded, compassionate, and present, even in the face of uncertainty, grief, and change. Rooted in the Soto Zen tradition and trained in compassion-based care through Stanford University, Roy brings a unique blend of mindfulness, emotional wisdom, we'll see, and practical support to the caregiving experience. His work reminds us that caregiving is not just a role, it's a deeply human experience and one that asks us to meet life with awareness, compassion, and presence. And perhaps most importantly, his message is simple but profound, that caring for others begins with learning how to care for ourselves. Roy, welcome to the show. For those
Hi, Loretta.
Yeah, here's your beautiful book, Zen
Thank you.
Caregiving. Yeah. What a heartfelt book. What a deep work, honestly. It's a very
Thank
deep
you.
work.
It's lovely to
Yeah.
be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I want to ask you this kind of question at the beginning, and then we'll get into specifics of your teachings and your program here. What has caregiving taught you about being human at the deepest level?
Wow, what a beautiful question. Well, it has taught me so much about vulnerability and how essential it is as a caregiver to be aware of and to allow our own vulnerabilities to be witnessed by others, even the person we're caring for. So often, and this is probably true for me in the beginning, but so often we feel like we have to present this strong, invincible presence for the sake of the person we're caring for. But actually, that can be quite separating. It can create distance between us and the person we're supporting. So when we're more comfortable acknowledging our own vulnerability, it brings us closer to that person. I think this is an essential quality. And, it's very much about self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
And, so much of the book is about cultivating mindful awareness. And this is an incredible gift, not just to ourselves, but to the person we're caring for. It's, I think presence is really the greatest way to show up and serve in the caregiving relationship. So I would say, those two pieces, but it's been such a blessing in my life. Like sometimes I pinch myself. I can't believe I stumbled into this work when I did. And it's been a true gift.
So that brings me to that beautiful question of, so how did you get into this work? What led you into it? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, so we were talking a little bit about how long I've been out here in the San Francisco Bay Area, but after living in Seattle and moving down here, um, I experienced the death of my beloved grandmother, and we were very close growing up. And when Bubby Sylvia, as we called her, when she died, I was asked to go out and be with her. And she had lived her entire life in the Detroit, Michigan area, but toward the end of her life, she decided to move out to Portland, Oregon, where my aunt was living. So I traveled out to see her, and we had these beautiful conversations where she conveyed her readiness to die. And at the time, I knew nothing about hospice. Well, Sylvia died, and then a while after, I found myself working at a small Buddhist publisher in Berkeley, California. And I was working with a couple people who did this remarkable, just beautiful job of holding space for me and my story of grief. And they really made an impression on me. And one day they said, it was almost as if they were waiting, to tell me this, but they said, we volunteer at this hospice and we think you'd be really interested in this work, or you would find it interesting. And they were Zen Hospice Project volunteers. And so, long story short, I enrolled in the training in '97, and I was a hospice volunteer for about 13 years. Some of that time I was on the board of directors of Zen Hospice Project. A year or two in, I decided this is the work I'm meant to do. There was that calling, and it was difficult to make that transition because I'm in a partnership. And so I had decided this is what needed to happen, but then I had to make it safe, for both of us to make that transition. But I ended up working for the organization from 2010, and I've had a number of roles. But the work has been such a gift to me in my life that I really wanted to put something out there in the world that could benefit others. Meanwhile, I am a practitioner of Soto Zen Buddhism, and so I have taken the vows, and the vows are really about living for the benefit of all beings. And so this feels like another expression of service, really, to put out there some of the teachings and approaches that have served me so well, that I've learned and also developed into a curriculum that we teach through the organization. We changed our public-facing name from Zen Hospice Project to Zen Caregiving Project, which I think is an interesting piece too of the story. I won't go into it right now, but yeah, so that was really the motivation. And given that experience in publishing, given my deep immersion in these practices, those two things came together. And I thought, sure, I can do this. Let's work on a book, and here we are. So it's been very satisfying to see it get out there into the world.
You said something, I kind of want to pull it out a little bit. A life of service. A life of service. Now, I know that many people, when they end up being caregivers, and we have the sandwich generation, right?
Right.
The generation in the middle that's got the aging parents and also the kids, right? Or things can happen. Often people end up in a caregiving situation and maybe they didn't want to be in it, right? So I don't quite know how to ask the question, but the contrast of in service to others, I know you know what I'm asking, and what happens when we just are thrown into it. How do we make this transition? What is that blessing of being in service?
Well, I have found with family caregivers who have found themselves in the role unexpectedly. It hasn't felt like a choice. I remind them that each day when they show up to care for their loved one, they really are making a choice. We do hear these stories about people who they find out that their spouse, for instance, has received a particular diagnosis, or a parent, and they decide, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this. I didn't sign up for it. And they make changes in their life, and they turn away. But family caregivers, they're turning toward, they really are deciding to show up again and again. And yet that feeling of being trapped or confinement is very real for people. But what I love about the mindfulness practice, which the book, it's a foundational piece of the book, is that it slows everything down. It gives us an opportunity to step back and look at our own process. What are the stories we're telling ourselves? What is my attitude in this experience? So it really gives us an opportunity to look at, well, I could leave, but I'm choosing not to. And I think there's a sense of agency that comes with that recognition that can be really helpful. And I think the practices, which I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into, it does breathe some space into that sense of confinement or a sense of being trapped.
Yeah, the sense of being trapped, or I've lost my life, right? Because
Right.
I'm giving so much to others. So what would you say to someone who has suddenly found themselves in that situation, who is possibly, trying to find their way, maybe struggling a little bit? And, because I was talking to someone the other day and she said, Loretta, I don't know how to put my needs in there. Like,
Right.
how do I get my needs in there?
Yeah, this is a really tricky piece for family caregivers. And yet, I often describe the caregiving relationship as a relationship of reciprocity. We are so tightly woven in this experience. We're in it together. And so if I set my own needs aside, it's clearly not good for me, but it's really not good for the person I'm caring for. Because what happens, and we see this, is that caregivers do burn out. And when they neglect their own needs, they do get sick. And then they're out, and then it creates a whole new set of issues or problems to address. So I think a caregiver who is able to tend to their own needs is really sending a clear message that I'm here for the long haul, but it has to be sustainable. It has to be workable for both of us. So, I think that recognition is really quite important. And I think in moments where someone is feeling overwhelm or a sense of entrapment, what can be really useful, I think, is to practice self-compassion and to fully acknowledge, well, this is my truth right in this moment. This is how I'm feeling. And then to recognize that there are so many family caregivers who are in similar circumstances and feeling the same, and to acknowledge this shared common humanity, right? And in that sense, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And then finally, in this moment of struggle, can I simply be kind to myself?
Yeah.
There's another, way to look at this, I think. I view caregiving as an initiatory process or experience where this is a great initiation. As humans, we've always gone through rites of passage and initiation. And what we've learned from studying rites of passage in different cultures around the world throughout time is that the suffering actually is that chrysalis of transformation and growth. And so when a family caregiver who's feeling overwhelmed and feeling like they're in an impossible situation, to use this framework, I think, can be really helpful. So I am in this passage, this rite of passage, and I know, I trust that I will come out the other end. And when I do, all this suffering will have resulted in real gifts, gifts of wisdom and gifts of building capacity. And as I like to say, these are not our gifts to keep for ourselves. They must be given away for the sake of our family, our community, because we know that others are coming up behind us who will also someday be in similar circumstances, and they can benefit from what we've learned. So it's a bit of a reframe that I think can help people, really not just survive the experience, but thrive in the experience and look for those opportunities for growth. So not as a bypass, but just as a recognition that this is simply how it is being human. This is how it has been.
What you just said to me is really important, and it's very. I'm kind of with you. Like, I think you said it better, but I'm thinking about, when you are able to help someone, when you are in service or you take that on and you're like, this person cannot do this for themselves. I can do this, right? I can bring them something to eat. I can bathe them. I can help them get to the bathroom, whatever. I can sit with them. I can talk to them. And this whole process that goes on with in suffering, right? They are suffering. You're having your own, idea around that, or your own self-talk regarding that. But there is something that comes out of that. There
Absolutely.
is something that comes out of that.
And really what the book is addressing is the type of suffering that we create for ourselves because we are kind of unconscious around the stories we're telling ourselves, or we can't find any release from the thinking mind. So as humans, it's so easy for us to ruminate on what has happened, or to, anticipate what may or may not happen in the future. It's hard to be with what's right here, right now. And, that mental agitation can cause us so much suffering. So the reframe is really useful, but I think of the book and the practices therein as moment-to-moment self-care.
Yeah.
So, self-care can be kind of tricky because it can be sort of a easy response to someone who we witness who's suffering because they're overwhelmed and they're so busy. When caregivers hear someone say to them, well, I think you need to do a better job at self-care or make more time for self-care, that doesn't feel very good to the caregiver. So really what I was trying to do with the book was to give people techniques and approaches that they can integrate into the daily activities that they already are engaging in, that they already have to partake in. So this idea of moment-to-moment self-care. And when we are able to cultivate present moment awareness, we're disrupting those thoughts that can create so much stress and anxiety for us. We're disrupting those thought patterns, the thoughts that, sometimes are really unuseful, even harmful to us. So I talk about using the body as a refuge. And when we drop into physical sensations, that interrupts the thinking mind, right? It quiets the stories. And I think cultivating mindful awareness is really about building our capacity to notice when we're getting swept up again in these persistent thoughts, and coming back to the sensations of my feet on the floor in contact with Mother Earth, or, what does the weight of the body feel like in this chair that I'm sitting in? Or can I find my breath and anchor my awareness on the breath, even if only for 3 or 4 breaths in and out? This disrupts the thinking mind, and it's a really healthy thing to do. And caregivers are busy, they have so much they need to do. But it's been fascinating to read some of the research around if you can focus your attention on 3 intentional breaths in and out, it has a way of stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system and calming the body. So as busy as one may be, gosh, I would hope they could find time to follow 3 breaths in and out. Yeah.
We're going to take a little station break, and I love actually taking the station break right now.
Yeah.
So maybe during the station break,
let's do it.
People could take 3 breaths in and out, because people all the time are like, I don't have time for that, Loretta.
Right.
It's like, Anyway, my wonderful guest, Roy Remer. This is Loretta Brown. We're talking about Zen caregiving. Very important conversation and very heartfelt. It's very tender. I love it. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Do you have something important to say? Want to help improve our world? Need to promote your business uniquely and effectively? KKNW is the answer. Our staff helps broadcasters and podcasters create professional sounding audio. Bring your talent and let our experts help you craft a radio show or podcast that best delivers your message. Learn more at 1150kknw.com. That's 1150kknw.com. KKNW, variety talk radio that's live and local.
Energy is powerful. It's all around us, mysterious, full of potential. Directing positive, healing energy to raise your vibrational rate through Reiki can change your life. Reiki Master Loretta Brown has relieved stress, sadness, anger, and even helped clients lose weight, stop smoking, and end sleep disorders. Worldwide, people have sought out Reiki Oasis. If you want help with your dis-ease, visit ReikiOasis.com. Harness life's energy. Visit ReikiOasis.com today.
I actually drop better when I'm high. It heightens my senses, calms me down. If anything, I'm more careful. Honestly, it just helps me focus.
That's probably what the driver who killed a 4-year-old told himself. And now he's in prison. You see, no matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Alternative Talk 1150, the talk of the sound.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful sound, Benny. You always pick the right thing. Anyway, welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show with my guest, Roy Remer, author of Zen Caregiving, How to Care for Yourself While Caring for Others. A reminder that this show is archived. You can download it for free at the KKNW 1150 AM archives for the original Loretta Brown Show. And of course, we're we're live on YouTube right now. I think we're on YouTube, X, Megaphone, Podcast One, iTunes. I'm leaving something out. Pandora, I don't know. The show's all over the place. Please go and take a look at it. And of course, we'll be on the radio a couple more times this week. So check it out. We are having, in my opinion, a very important conversation about caregiving. Those people that find themselves as caregivers. During the break, Roy and I were talking about what are the statistics of caregivers, right? How many are there? And I made a comment that a lot of people feel like people don't catch on that they're caregivers. So what is a caregiver? How do you know if you are one?
Well, I think you know when you are one. I mean, in the sense that, before the break, we were talking about caregivers really in high burden caregiving roles, and those people definitely know, but it can be subtle for some. And I take a very broad interpretation of the term caregiver. And so, if you're a daughter just picking up groceries for your parents and helping them with a couple things around the house, you're a caregiver. But even, parenting, I would say parenting is caregiving. Absolutely. I was having a conversation last night with a gentleman who is caring for grandchildren, and that's a caregiving role. But even, when we move through the world, when I go and pick up my Americano at the cafe and I encounter the barista, and, you can tell when people are having a tough day, when they're struggling. In that short interaction, can I show up in a way that conveys my presence and open-heartedness? It's a moment of caregiving, right? And I think people appreciate that, and it can make a huge difference in their life. So these approaches that are really designed for caregivers, or at least presented in the context of caregiving, they're really, I consider them to be life skills, right? Yeah. So the numbers are growing. Currently there's about 63 million caregivers in the US. And to your point, I think the number is probably bigger because a lot of people wouldn't identify as such. But the number's grown a lot in recent years. So maybe it's because more people are self-identifying as caregivers, but more likely it's because the need has really, really increased. I don't know that we want to go down this path, but we have this healthcare system in the US, and in my opinion, it's not the greatest. So we really depend on family caregivers for the important roles. Sometimes and I agree, they're described as the backbone of our health system. I think that's very true. And just a quick point, I would say, while I'd like to think of the primary audience for the book being family caregivers, but it really brings me joy to think that the book would end up in the hands of that sector of healthcare that is referred to as direct care workers. And that's typically the lowest paid strata of paid caregiver in the health system. And because they have big jobs too, and often really high caseloads. And sadly, they often have not been introduced to these types of practices in their life. And I think the approaches in the book can be really beneficial to help them feel a little bit more stability in the role, or can help them build their emotional resilience.
Oh, yeah, that's to the point. Could you also talk to us a little bit about the book? This book has so much in it, right? And yeah, just talk to us a little bit about the book, the benefit of the book for anybody that gets it and reads it. What are you really trying to accomplish with this book? Yeah.
Well, so it was a big decision to title the book Zen Caregiving, because while, generally speaking, our attitudes towards Zen have really changed over the past, 15, 20 years. I've been amazed. When I first started, caregiving, no one knew very much about Zen, what it was. And now I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, but just to say the book is certainly not a book of Zen doctrine. I'm really trying to express the wisdom of the Zen tradition in universal terms. And I talk quite a bit about other spiritual traditions and practices in the book. I think, the essence of Zen exists in every spiritual tradition from around the world, and I try to honor those traditions. But nonetheless, I think so much of what is taught within Zen doctrine, if you will, is so relevant to the caregiving experience. So I'm really trying to use that as a basis or foundation. The book is divided into 4 sections. So the first section is mindfulness. And the literal translation of Zen is meditation. And I differentiate between meditation and mindfulness. I consider meditation to be an activity. It's an activity where we most readily cultivate mindful awareness. But mindfulness is a mind state. It's a state of being. So that first section on mindfulness, it's really the foundation. I consider it the stream that runs through everything else in the book, that ability to maintain present moment awareness. Yeah. The second section is about compassion. And we all know about compassion. However, I think it's really useful to step back and kind of deconstruct, if you will, the experience of compassion, so we fully understand what is happening in the body, in the brain, as we experience compassion, so we know what to do with ourselves when we get stuck or when our compassion gets blocked. And of course, I talk a lot about self-compassion because it's so essential. The third section of the book is titled Loss. And caregivers experience loss daily. So much is given up to show up, to care for someone else, for a loved one. And it's, again, here we are at this idea of reciprocity. The caregiver has to hold and process their own losses while they're witnessing and holding space for the losses of the person they're caring for. And one of the really important points that I bring up is that if we're not comfortable looking at our own story of loss, or if we're not comfortable allowing ourselves to process our own grief, because a lot of us, we turn away from it. We pretend it's not happening, or we kind of suppress it. So if we're not willing to really immerse ourselves in our own story of loss, we're probably not going to be that useful to someone who's experienced big loss or approaching the end of their life. It's going to trigger a lot emotionally. And so I'm really encouraging people to really look at what is the grief that they're holding that maybe they haven't given its due. Anyways, the fourth section I titled Intimacy. And, so much of this approach is about creating more intimacy with others, of course, but with oneself. Really getting to know our own mind, creating or cultivating a willingness to drop below the neck and really attune to what's happening in the body. So they're very embodied practices. And the intimacy section was also a convenient place to put any chapter topic that didn't neatly fit in one of the other 3 sections. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just finish addressing your question by saying each chapter begins with a short passage, or a gatha, as I call them. Yeah. People might consider it a prayer or of sorts, or a verse. And I wanted to create something that really brought the topic of the chapter to its essence, that someone could even remember and hold on to during their day of caregiving. Then there's the body of the chapter, where we have all the content and the teachings and approaches. And then each chapter has a practice activity that one can engage in to deepen their understanding and to get more comfortable with the approaches that are taught in the chapter. So that's kind of a meta view, if you will, of the book itself.
Yeah, I thank you for that. You explained that so very well. And I just want to say that the way that you have this set up to me is just fantastic, because also with these activities. So like, for instance, I'm just randomly opening the book, right? Like chapter 11 is called Loving Kindness. right? Caregiving is more than competency, wishes for well-being, just giving people a taste of it. Chapter 16, it's weird how they just flip to the beginning of chapters. The ever-present nature of loss, the ever-present nature of loss, which actually leads me straight into a question I was going to ask you. Kind of came out of a conversation I had with someone the other day who is dealing with the dementia of her mother. And whenever she goes over, her mother's more non-present. Like, who is this person, right? That she's now taking care of. And in this particular case, as the dementia progresses, the mother is becoming angry, aggressive. Can you just talk about that a little bit and how you approach that? Because she is in a continuous state of loss.
Right.
And caring for a person she's not even sure she knows.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so difficult. In the book, I tell the story of a woman named Nancy, who I spent time with, who was living with dementia, and how one day her daughter showed up with her granddaughters, with Nancy's granddaughters, and the family comes in and they've got this big energy. They're excited to see their mother, grandmother, and Nancy has difficulty recognizing them. And the daughter is reminding Nancy of who they are and saying things like, "Come on, you remember us, right? We were here last week." And Nancy's in the state of overwhelm, Yeah. And I have such compassion for the daughter, the granddaughters, and for Nancy. But the point I make in telling that story is that probably in a slightly unconscious way, family members can create more agitation for the person who's living with dementia by that fierce attachment to them, remembering who they are. And so I think, and I pose this question in the book, if I were to ask the daughter what they want most for their mother, they would probably respond, "I want for my mother just comfort and ease," right? Comfort and ease. So how do we provide that to someone living with dementia when so much is slipping away, when so many memories are lost to them? I think we have to first check in with ourselves. The way I'm approaching this person, is this for me or is this for them? And this is tough for family members. We identify with these relationships in our life, and we want to be remembered. So when we approach someone with dementia, can we check in with ourselves first? There are certain types of dementia, like frontotemporal dementia, which make people really ornery, really angry and nasty even. And if we're in a state of reactivity, we're just going to make the situation worse. But if we can ground ourselves in the breath, in present moment awareness, and ask ourselves, what's my emotional state in this moment? And if we can come in with stability, if we're down regulated, then we can actually help that person relax and calm down. I don't want to oversimplify this, because in some states, people just will stay angry no matter what. But if we can be non-reactive, it can certainly help, Or as one teacher once said, don't worry so much about helping, just don't make things worse, And it certainly will not make things worse. And I think it becomes really important for people as someone's slipping away and they're constantly in the state of loss to tend to that grief for themselves, And once again, as difficult as this may be, is to depersonalize what's happening in the situation. This is really what it means to be a human in these days, when we're living such long lives and the mind starts to go. And so, again, I think to shift from reactivity to response requires that we can pause long enough to create a space, right? And when I've spent time with people living with dementia, what I've noticed is while they've lost access to their memories, they may be expressing what sometimes we call word salad, where we can't understand what they're saying. They're still pretty attuned to energy and emotions. And so let us just check in with ourselves and, show up as a clear, loving presence. Yeah, as frustrating as it can be.
Yeah. I have a doctor friend who does a lot of work with children with cancer, right? Children with cancer. And I was thinking about that when you're talking, because he said that what he does is, because it's pretty intense at times, is he will just do what he says, pause before walking through a doorway, which is you kind of bring this out also, where just stop for a moment, take a moment, be with yourself,
right,
and breathe and gather yourself, ground yourself, whatever you've got to do. And it's just that moment of pausing, of regrouping, of being fully present, and then walking through the door.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. I love that as a physician, this is part of his practice, because I imagine, not knowing this person, there's so much being asked of him, and he's moving from one patient to another. And so to take that pause and check in with oneself, what can I let go of in this moment? How can I show up fully? It's really huge. Yeah, absolutely. And family members can do this too. And, it's not about recognizing the mind state that I'm in and then putting on a good face. That's not what we're talking about. Mindfulness is very much about authenticity and honesty, I think. Like, what's truly happening here?
Yeah.
If we don't acknowledge how we're feeling in any given moment, then we're kind of controlled by the particular mind state that we're in, and we don't have to be. I would say mindfulness is also about making a choice. When we were coming back from the break, and now we're coming back, and this is a constant practice. When I'm leading meditations, I'll often say each breath, each sensation is an invitation to begin again. Yeah. And so if I'm in a caregiving experience and I'm in a rotten mood that morning because I didn't sleep well or I had an argument with my sweetie, whatever, this breath is an opportunity to begin again and show up differently. It's never too late, and it makes a difference. And, what I began to notice is that the more grounded and present I was, the more willing I was to just acknowledge my own vulnerabilities in the moment. People began seeing me as a safe place to share certain truths that maybe they had not been so comfortable expressing. And I think this is a huge gift as well that caregivers can bring to a loved one or to a patient.
Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our time, Roy Remer. That felt like 1 minute.
It did indeed.
Roy's book, Zen Caregiving, How to Care for Yourself While Caring for Others. You've got about 10 seconds or so. Please tell people where to find you and your book.
Yeah, please check out zencaregiving.org. You can find out more about me, the book, the classes we offer, our meditations, etc. And Loretta, I'm really grateful for the opportunity and the work you're doing. So thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
And thanks to your audience for everything they're doing.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And Benny Mathers, you are absolutely
Thank you, Benny.
my Zen place.